So that's where you're putting your money at in terms of the Shiller PE. We're basically almost at the 2000 level, and we're above the 1929 level, right? So we're at massive inflated PE ratios for stocks, not without risk, I would say, not without risk. And I would say you really want to buy when people are fearful. That's what Buffett said. And, this is where we are now. The fear greed index hit 5. That was the all-time low. Remember the Terra Luna event was a 6 and FTX was an 8. If you haven't bought in, buy Bitcoin right now, I think.
비트코인은 단순히 장기 추세로 회복하는 것만으로도 올해 2배 상승할 가능성이 있습니다. 이 메시지는 수학자이자 투자자로 유명한 프레드 크루거가 전하는 최신 메시지입니다. 그는 현재 시장이 비트코인의 장기 성장 궤도보다 훨씬 아래에 위치해 있다고 말합니다. 실제로 비트코인은 지난 10년 이상 자산의 성장을 설명해온 파워 법칙 기준으로 약 40% 낮은 수준에서 거래되고 있습니다. 만약 가격이 이 장기 추세선으로 되돌아가기만 해도 지금 가격 대비 2배 상승은 충분히 가능하다는 것이 그의 분석입니다. 하지만 이야기는 여기서 끝나지 않습니다. 크루거는 전통적으로 알려진 비트코인의 4년 사이클이 오히려 투자자들을 잘못된 판단으로 이끌 수 있다고 지적합니다. 또한 초기 대규모 보유자들, 오지의 매도는 이미 상당 부분 마무리되었을 가능성이 높다고 설명합니다. 여기에 더해 금리 인하, 재정 적자 확대, 그리고 공격적인 통화 공급과 같은 새로운 거시경제 환경이 비트코인의 다음 강력한 상승장을 촉발할 수 있는 핵심 요인이라고 강조합니다. 더 나아가 그는 비트코인이 향후 몇 년간 연 50%에 달하는 수익률을 기록할 가능성도 있다고 말합니다. 그리고 지금 시점에서는 주식이나 금보다 비트코인이 오히려 더 유리한 투자처일 수 있다고 주장합니다. 결국 최근의 변동성은 단순한 불안 요소가 아니라 오히려 더 큰 상승을 앞두고 나타나는 신호일 수 있다는 것이 그의 핵심 메시지입니다. 그럼 비트코인이 왜 올해 2배 상승할 가능성이 있는지, 주식이나 금보다 왜 비트코인이 유리한 투자처인지 지금부터 함께 보겠습니다. 영상 시작 전 영상을 시청하실 때에는 편집 시간이 발생해 늦을 수 있습니다. 지금 시장은 속도가 중요합니다. 하단 고정 댓글 보시면 텔레그램 방이 있는데 총 운용자산 121억으로 4명의 전문가가 6년간 70% 승률을 자랑하는 시그니처 매매법을 공유하고 있으며 현재 8,500분 넘게 방에 참여하고 계십니다. 실시간 차트 분석, 매매 시나리오, 시장 이슈, 그리고 투자 심리까지 다양한 인사이트까지 얻어가실 수 있습니다. 영상에서 담지 않는 중요한 이야기 1초라도 빨리 얻어가시길 바라겠습니다.
I think you have to believe that the 4-year cycle really runs deep. It runs deep. And in particular, OGs believe. Many of them sold at 100K. All they know is it was, $1,000 in 2013 and 2016. Now we're at 100K. That's 100x where it was in 2016. And really, I think if you look at 2025, it was a tug of war between OG selling and ETF buying. In 2022, we hit 77% down. Went from 69,000 to 15,000 and change. If you look at almost all of 2017 was below 10,000 actually, right? And then it just spiked up to almost 20,000 in November of 2017, right? But it was just a real spike. And so if you look at the 15,000 thing, it's pretty much at the previous bull market all-time high. Right? OGs have sold. They aren't selling at 69,000. They sold at 100,000. They're no longer selling. Actually, they are net buying right now. And that's what the data suggests. I would argue, Tom Lee is arguing, and a bunch of other people are arguing, Checkmate as well, that we are close to or at a bottom. I suspect that actually the people who did, very few people actually will end up with more Bitcoin as a result of timing the top and buying below. Most will end up with less Bitcoin as a result. Now, given where we are at, 40% under the trend line of power law, we are likely to 2x this year just based on trend, recovering to the trend. That's an amazing result, right? Now, if we don't 2x, if we kind of recoup this thing over a couple of years, which I don't think we will, I think it'll be quick. There's still massive tailwinds that we have. So, we have massive tailwinds. We have, in particular, a new Fed chair. We spent a lot of the 2022 bear market can be attributed to Powell tightening interest rates. That is one of the biggest problems what we had with 2022. Powell said we're going to be lower for longer, and then he completely changed his mind, aggressively ramped interest rate. And we had the highest rate of increase of interest rates that we've ever seen in the history of America, from 0 to 5.5%. Now we're at 3.5%, and we're headed down in June, right? And by the way, the consensus right now is that we will be at 3% by September. You know, whether we get to 2.5%, 2%, 1%, I don't know, but we're definitely rates are definitely headed down. You can take that to the bank. Furthermore, there is a pressure to win the midterm. And so Trump is already floating the idea of taking some of this tariff money and just handing it to people in terms of stimulus checks, or handing it to people in terms of tax refunds or whatnot, right? But there's just enormous pressure to win the midterms, and that starts now. Debt will hit 39 trillion in March. We're at 38.65 trillion right now. In spite of Trump saying that he's going to fix the deficits, they're worse than ever. The tariffs didn't even help. Our deficits are just going out of control. The printer cometh, okay? The printer cometh. As Dominic Frisby said, the AI shock is coming, and so is the printing. Let's just time out here. We all know AI is coming for white-collar jobs. Amazon has sort of said, we can grow now without any more humans. We're not going to fire any more people, but we aren't going to hire any more either. We're only going to hire AI at this point. So we have a problem with employment is weak. I don't want to say I told you so, but I told you so. Now, from this level, Bitcoin has the power to deliver 50% plus CAGRs for multiple years, right? So the power law curves sort of running at a 38, 39% CAGR right now, but we're 40% below the curve. So even just catching up 20% for a couple of years will bring us to 60% CAGR. We have 50% CAGR rate is a very good, very safe assumption. Where are you going to put your money? You're going to put it in stocks? Is that where you're going to get your 50% CAGR? Trailing PE on stocks is 30. The Shiller PE is at a 39 rate. So that's where you're putting your money at in terms of the Shiller PE. We're basically almost at the 2000 level, and we're above the 1929 level, right? So we're at massive inflated PE ratios for stocks, not without risk, I would say, not without risk. And I would also argue that gold is dangerous, especially relative to Bitcoin. So the idea of putting your money in stocks or gold, yeah, they look great in retrospect. I mean, look at it since 2010. It looks great. What if we're at one of these tops? You're going to have PE compression. Now, you might have earnings expansion, but PE compression could really kill her. So I would argue stocks don't look that great from an asset class perspective. And so the last thing I'll say is, again, I've sort of mentioned how brutal it's been, how it looks terrible. And I would say you really want to buy when people are fearful. That's what Buffett said. And, this is where we are now. The fear greed index hit 5. That was the all-time low. Remember that Terra Luna event was a 6 and FTX was an 8. If you haven't bought in, buy Bitcoin right now.
프레드 크루거의 시각에 따르면 지금 보이지 않는 곳에서 쌓이고 있는 여러 흐름들이 앞으로 몇 년간 비트코인에 매우 강력한 환경을 만들어낼 가능성이 있습니다. 정부는 막대한 재정 적자를 계속해서 쌓아가고 있고 국가 부채는 끊임없이 증가하고 있으며 경제를 부양해야 한다는 정치적 압박 역시 점점 더 강해지고 있습니다. 특히 11월 중간선거가 가까워질수록 정책 결정자들은 금융 환경을 긴축하기보다는 오히려 지출을 늘리고 경기 부양책을 시행하거나 통화 정책을 완화하는 방향을 선택하는 경우가 많습니다. 이러한 흐름은 결국 시장에 더 많은 유동성을 공급하게 됩니다. 한편 AI 같은 기술 변화는 고용시장과 생산성 구조 자체를 바꾸기 시작했습니다. 기업들은 점점 더 적은 인력으로도 성장할 수 있는 방법을 찾아가고 있고 이는 또 다른 경제적 압박을 만들어냅니다. 이러한 압박을 완화하기 위해 정부는 추가적인 부양책을 꺼낼 가능성이 높습니다. 결과적으로 지금의 환경은 단순한 사이클이 아니라 구조적인 변화 속에서 유동성이 계속해서 확대되는 흐름에 가깝다고 볼 수 있습니다. 금일 영상은 여기까지고요. 하단 고정 댓글 링크 들어가서 수많은 인사이트 얻어가시길 바라겠습니다. 영상 도움되셨다면 구독과 좋아요 부탁드리면서 지금까지 떡상 메들리 한상호였습니다. 감사합니다.